It's 1985, school's over for the week, and you want to spend your pocket money on a Saturday afternoon film with a bit of mystery, adventure, danger, friendship, and maybe even a little bit of romance? Well, back then, The Goonies would have been exactly what you were looking for. Hello and welcome to this retrospective look back at The Goonies, a 1985 movie from Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg, which was kind of like an Indiana Jones for kids, where a group of friends from the Goondocks, also known as Astoria in Oregon, USA, come across a historical pirate treasure map and go on an adventure to find this treasure in an effort to raise enough money to stop their beloved hometown from being demolished to make way for a leisure development. I'm RetroSteveUK, and in this video we'll be taking a look at the story and events of the movie itself. We're doing a Where Are They Now and looking into the Goonies actors. We share some nostalgic memories with your featured comments from the online community posts, and we'll be finishing off the video with some memorable TV spots and trailers from back in the day. Of course, if you came here specifically for the Where Are They Now section, you're welcome to use the chapter markers that I've placed along the video timeline to skip to whatever you're after. But if, like the Goonies, you believe that we should never say die, go ahead and grab your treasure map as we go on an epic quest to uncover the hidden depths of retro nostalgia buried within this classic 1980s action movie. After the creepy Skull and Crossbones intro, the movie kicks off with a series of action scenes involving a prison escape and subsequent car chase. A local criminal gang, the Fratellis, Mama Fratelli and brothers Jake and Francis, are the culprits, as Mama and Francis help to break out Jake from the county jail. They're chased through the streets of Astoria, also known as the Goondocks, and eventually make good their escape by blending in with the other vehicles in a local 4x4 race on the beach. We're introduced to Mikey Walsh and his older brother Brandon in their house as they're visited by Mikey's best friend Clark, nicknamed Mouth because of his cheeky attitude and his tendency to talk a lot. They're then joined by Chunk, their overweight food-obsessed friend, who is forced to perform his famous truffle shuffle move before they'll let him in. Next up it's their friend Data, who lives next door, so called because of his creative inventions. He crashes into Mikey's house through the screen door after sliding down a zip wire from his bedroom window. With the five of them all assembled in the house now, they get to discussing the upcoming demolition of the house in a planned redevelopment of the Goondocks area. It turns out Mikey and Bran's dad has been trying to raise money to pay off the developers and prevent the demolition, which would mean moving away from their beloved homes and splitting up their friendships forever. They're curious about what's going to happen to all the junk in the attic that Mikey's dad has stored for the local museum where he works as a curator. In their curiosity, they venture up there to see if there's anything valuable that might help pay off the developers. Nothing of any great value is found, however after Chunk accidentally breaks a picture frame, they discover what appears to be a treasure map of the local area from the year 1632, leading to what could be a hidden stash of pirate booty. This reminds Mikey of a story his dad told him about a legendary pirate, One-Eyed Willie, who stashed a lifetime's worth of stolen treasures on his ship, but had to flee from a British armada who were after his treasure. The legend says his ship ended up stranded in a cave after the walls collapsed, and in his obsession, Willie and his crew dug tunnels around the cave and built booby traps to prevent anyone ever finding the treasure, and in a final obsessive act, Willie killed all of his crew except one who escaped with the treasure map. After discovering a newspaper clipping about a local recluse, Chester Copperpot, who nobody took seriously after he'd claimed that he had the key to One-Eyed Willie's treasure and who'd gone missing while in pursuit of the treasure, the boys realise that the legend could be true and decide to set out and see if they can find the treasure themselves, taking the map and an old doubloon that was found hidden behind it. They head off on their bikes following the map and discover a location that looks like a landmark on the map. The old doubloon holds a clue to the treasure's access point, as the holes line up with the landmark rocks and a derelict cafe that isn't actually on the map. According to further instructions on the map, it seems the cafe may have been built over the access point, so the boys head in to investigate. Unfortunately, this old building is where the Fratelli gang are hiding out, and the boys bump into Mama Fratelli and Jake, who pretend to be the cafe owners. The terrified boys play along with the story and order drinks, biding their time until they get a chance to leave. After leaving, they hang back and discuss what they've seen. As they're talking, the Fratellis leave in their 4x4, and it's at this point two friends of Brandon's turn up, Stef and Andy. The two girls spotted the boys while out driving with another friend, and were curious as to what they were up to. Now that the Fratellis are gone, the boys decide to return to the cafe to continue their search. The girls initially decide they want no part of this, until something scary spooks them into joining the boys in the cafe. Down in the cellar, Chunk accidentally breaks a water cooler, and as the water drains away, Mikey notices the sound of the water draining through the floor under the fireplace. They remove the grates and discover a boarded up secret passage. Brandon kicks in the boards and the passage is revealed, but before they can find out more, Data makes a shocking discovery. There's a printing machine that's been used to forge $50 bills. The Fratellis are counterfeiters, and they're into some pretty serious crime. Before they have a chance to decide what to do, Chunk spots a freezer and finds a stash of ice cream inside. In his excitement, he fails to notice the dead body also stashed inside the freezer, which then proceeds to topple out and onto the floor. This, of course, is the exact moment the Fratellis decide to return, so the guys try their best to fumble the body back into the freezer, and poor Chunk gets shut inside in the confusion. Realizing they're now trapped in the basement, the guys decide the only way out is through the secret passageway under the fireplace. They all manage to get through the hatch before the Fratellis walk in, but Chunk has to hide in the freezer until they leave. When the coast is clear, Chunk emerges from the freezer and spots the guys under the fireplace. They suggest he finds a way out so that he can call the police, and Chunk being Chunk, he clumsily backs into some junk and a blanket is dislodged from a small window in the process. So he uses this to escape and runs off to find help, just as the Fratellis return to investigate the noise that he made. Eventually, Chunk makes it to a road and flags down a car, spilling his guts about the Fratellis' hideout, and he asks to be taken to the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, when the driver turns on his interior light, it turns out to be the Fratelli brothers themselves, who promptly bundle him in the car and take him back to the cafe. The rest of the guys trapped in the cavern below the fireplace decide to explore to see if there's another way out. They come across a room filled with water pipes and proceed to bang and pull on them to see if they can get someone's attention. In the process, not only do they cause havoc at a country club above the pipes, but they also rupture one of the main pipes and a high-powered jet of water breaks away some loose rocks, revealing another way through. Meanwhile, up in the basement, the Fratellis are interrogating Chunk to find out where his friends are hiding. They don't believe his pirate treasure story, so they threaten to stick his hand in a blender and demand he tells them everything. And in one of the funniest scenes from the film, he proceeds to confess everything he's ever done wrong since 3rd grade. There's some pretty gnarly confessions here, and the Fratellis end up listening to the entire thing in dumbfounded amazement, with Jake Fratelli eventually admitting that he's beginning to like this kid. Back in the caverns, the guys come across a rotting corpse crushed under a massive rock. This turns out to be Chester Copperpot, the missing recluse from the newspaper clipping. With nothing to lose, they loot the body, taking a piratey-looking medallion, which turns out to be the aforementioned key to One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and a bunch of candles, although one of the candles isn't a candle at all, but a stick of dynamite, and that will come into play later in the film. This is where they trigger their first booby trap involving a swinging blade, ropes, and falling boulders, and they barely escape with their lives. As they move on, they disturb a nest of sleeping bats which fly back towards where the guys came from. Up in the basement, just as Chunk is about to lose his hand in the blender, the bats emerge from the fireplace hatch and cause havoc in the basement. Suddenly, the Fratellis realise that Chunk's secret pirate passageway story could actually be true, so Mama tells Jake to lock Chunk up with his older brother. This is where we first properly meet the 3rd Fratelli brother, who is kept cruelly chained up in the basement. This is Sloth, a facially deformed man with a childlike personality who initially scares Chunk witless. However, as he spends more time with him, Chunk comes to realise he's been badly abused by his family and is actually sweetly innocent by nature. After Sloth manages to rip his chains out of the wall, he and Chunk share a sweet moment as Sloth breaks a chocolate bar in half and offers some to Chunk. Back down in the caverns, the guys come across a beautiful waterfall which turns out to be the bottom level of a local wishing well. From here they have a chance to escape up through the well. However, Mikey reminds everyone that if they give up and go home now, they'll lose their town, their school, and most importantly their friends. This is the well-known inspirational speech where the Goonies Never Say Die catchphrase is first uttered in the movie, and it galvanizes everyone's resolve to continue with the quest for One-Eyed Willie's pirate treasure. So as the guys continue on their quest, the Fratellis venture down the fireplace hatch in pursuit of the Goonies, while Chunk, accompanied by his new best friend, attempts to phone the sheriff, who simply does not believe his story, so the two of them take direct action and head to the basement fireplace to follow after the rest of the Goonies. As the Goonies' adventures continue, now with the Fratellis in pursuit and Chunk and Sloth behind them, we see the guys attempt to beat the rest of One-Eyed Willie's traps and challenges. With the help of information on the map, they discover that Chester Copperpot's key fits over a section of stone pegs, which when turned, sets off a mechanical trap that opens a trapdoor to the next cavern. Data falls through the trapdoor but avoids death by spike pit by using one of his inventions, a set of novelty teeth on a spring, which clamp onto a rock outcrop. They then have to cross a narrow log bridge above an underground river, and with the Fratellis not far behind, Data uses another of his gadgets, oil slick shoes, to slow them down, and with hilarious results as the two Fratelli brothers later come a cropper on the bridge, landing on their pirate treasures. The next challenge comes in the form of a musical organ made from skeletal bones. If the correct notes are played, a doorway will open. The notes are written on the back of the map, so Andy, who's had a few piano lessons, steps up to play. A correct chord opens the door a little, and an incorrect one causes part of the floor to drop away. After a couple of mishaps, Andy correctly plays 3 chords and the door fully opens, allowing them to move on. Their next obstacle actually looks like a lot of fun, albeit quite terrifying. They have to slide down what is essentially a twisting water slide, presumably carved out by years of erosion, which blindly twists and turns, eventually spitting them out into a massive cave, and this is where they finally get to see One-Eyed Willie's ship for the first time. So they board the ship and find the skeletal remains of One-Eyed Willie and his crew, surrounded by hordes of treasure, and they begin to scoop up as much as they can carry, although Mikey respectfully tells them not to take the gold from One-Eyed Willie's scales, as they should really leave some behind for him. Sadly, before they can leave, the Fratellis catch up to them, take away all their pocketed treasure, and force them to walk the plank. Just in the nick of time, however, Sloth and Chunk burst onto the scene, performing one of those classic descend down the sails using a knife stunts. This is a throwback to earlier in the film when Sloth was watching a classic pirate movie on his TV. Sloth literally swings into action, saving Mouth and Stef from the plank. He goes on to single-handedly save the kids from the Fratellis, enabling them to escape into the cavern, leaving the Fratellis behind on the ship. The Goonies realise they can no longer safely return to the ship and decide to leave the treasure behind, as saving their own lives is now preferable to the inevitability of dying at the hands of the Fratellis. Back on the ship, the remaining Fratellis, minus Sloth, are frantically gathering up their spoils. However, they foolishly take the gold from One-Eyed Willie's scales, which turns out to be the final booby trap. They have no choice but to scarper, and they end up dropping what little treasure they gathered as they flee from the ship and into the water. Meanwhile, the kids have discovered a small gap in the cavern wall, but it's too small to fit through. Data lights a candle to help Brandon see the edges of the gap, but they quickly realise it's not a candle. It's that stick of dynamite we saw earlier in the film. In a panic, Brandon throws the dynamite into the hole and everybody retreats back into the water. The dynamite blows a hole big enough to escape through, but also dislodges a rock, blocking their path. Thankfully, Sloth is strong enough to lift the rock, allowing everyone to escape, but in doing so he's trapped himself in the cave and the kids are forced to leave him behind. After the kids have escaped, we see that the dynamite explosion has also loosened some rock elsewhere in the cave, and the large opening appears in front of the pirate ship. We'll see the relevance of this at the end of the film. Out on the beach, the kids are spotted by 2 patrol officers who call it in, and everyone is reunited with their families, including Chunk, whose parents, knowing him so well, have brought him a takeaway pizza. These emotional reunions are interrupted as the Fratellis emerge from the cave and waste no time in blaming everything on Sloth. However, the Goonies jump to his rescue, explaining that the other Fratellis are the bad guys, and the police arrest the real villains on the spot. We're left wondering what will happen to Sloth now he has no family, but in one final emotional revelation, Chunk explains to Sloth that he's going to live with him now, with Chunk's family, and after all that's happened, it's hard not to shed a little tear over this heartwarming example of love and friendship overcoming prejudices surrounding physical and mental shortcomings. Pretty inclusive stuff for a 1980s film. In the final scene, we get one final twist as the business mogul who wants to tear down the Goondocks turns up, demanding Mikey's dad sign the final paperwork to hand over their house. But just as he's about to sign the forms, Rosalita, who was helping the Walshes to pack up their home earlier in the film, discovers Mikey's marble bag, and it's full of priceless jewels. Apparently, when the Fratellis took away their treasure on the ship, they didn't think to check the marble bag, so now with all these precious gems to sell, they'll have enough money to save the Goondocks, and Mikey's dad gleefully rips up the paperwork. The guys try to tell the story to a local news reporter who's on the scene, and of course nobody believes them. However, the story becomes infinitely more believable after the cynical sheriff spots One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship, now freed from its shackles, floating out from that fresh opening in the cave. And the film ends here with everybody watching old Willie's ship sailing off out to sea as the credits roll. We're going to be taking a look now at the 8 core characters from the Goonies gang, the actors who played them, what they've been doing since, and where they are today in 2025. Mikey Walsh is the asthmatic de facto leader of the group, as he seems to be the one that instigates action, and he inspires and motivates the others to keep on going. Mikey is played by actor Sean Astin, born in 1971 in Santa Monica, California. The Goonies was his first major cinematic role after performing in a couple of TV movies. He is perhaps the most famously known for playing Samwise Gamgee in the early 2000s Lord of the Rings movies, and more recently he played Bob Newby in Season 2 of Stranger Things on Netflix in 2017. He is still working in TV and films now in 2025 at the age of 54. Brandon Brand Walsh is Mikey's athletic older brother who's active in the sports scene at his high school. Brandon is played by Josh Brolin, born in 1968 in Santa Monica, California. The Goonies was his very first acting role on record, which is quite an impressive start for an actor. One of his arguably biggest roles was playing Thanos in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he also played a major role as Cable in the 2018 Deadpool 2 movie. He more recently appeared as Gurney Halleck in the recent Dune movies from 2021 and 2024, and is still working now in 2025 at the age of 57. Lawrence Chunk Cohen is a clumsy kid with a love of food and a tendency to spin fantastic stories, which has earned him a reputation as a boy who cried wolf type character. Chunk is played by Jeff Cohen, born in 1974 in Los Angeles, California. Similarly to his co-star Sean Astin, The Goonies was Jeff's first major cinematic role after performing in a TV movie. His acting career continued into his teens, but he eventually gave up acting in favour of studying for a law degree, and he is still working as an entertainment lawyer now in 2025 at the age of 50. Clark Mouth Devereaux is Mikey's best friend, a cheeky lad with a tendency to talk a lot. He also speaks Spanish, so he plays a major role in translating the words written on the pirate treasure map. Mouth is played by Corey Feldman, born in 1971 in Los Angeles, California. Corey had quite a prolific acting career before appearing in The Goonies, with a mix of bit parts and recurring roles in various movies and TV shows. He's very well known for his acting roles in Stand By Me in 1986 as Teddy Duchamp, alongside Will Wheaton, River Phoenix and Jerry O'Connell, and in The Lost Boys in 1987 as Edgar Frog. He is still acting today in 2025 at the age of 53. Richard Data Wang is a gadget-obsessed inventor who lives next door to Mikey. His madcap inventions often backfire, however they do help out the gang on a few occasions during the film. Data is played by Huy Quan, also known as Jonathan Huy Quan, born in 1971 in Saigon, South Vietnam. Hui's first movie role was in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, in which he famously played Indy's helpful, enthusiastic sidekick, Short Round. The Goonies was his second cinematic appearance, after which he continued acting until 1996, when he became a stunt choreographer and director. He resumed his acting career in 2021 and is well known for recently appearing as Waymond Wang in the film Everything Everywhere All at Once, and in Season 2 of Loki as Ouroboros, aka Obi. His acting career continues to this day in 2025 at the age of 53. Andrea Teresa Andy Carmichael is a high school cheerleader from the more wealthy hillside part of Astoria. She becomes an honorary Goonie after Mikey's inspirational Never Say Die speech, and has a bit of a fancy for Mikey's older brother, Brandon. Andy is played by Kerri Green, born in 1967 in Fort Lee, New Jersey. The Goonies was her first acting role, after which she appeared in a number of film and TV roles, the most well-known of these being the John Candy movie Summer Rental in 1985 and Lucas in 1986. She took a break from acting in the mid-90s to study at Vassar College in New York, graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. Today, in 2025, at the age of 58, she works as a screenplay writer as well as focusing on her family. Stephanie Stef Steinbrenner is Andy's best friend, a quirky, sarcastic tomboy. She's one of the more pragmatic characters and is often seen providing moral support for Andy, who has a tendency to panic in rough situations. Stef is played by Martha Plimpton, born in 1970 in New York City. She initially began her career as a child model performing in commercials, before moving into acting at age 11. She's had a prolific acting career since The Goonies, one particularly memorable example being the Steve Martin film Parenthood in 1989, playing Julie Lampkin, who marries her boyfriend without telling her parents. She's still working in various movie, TV and voice acting roles now in 2025 at the age of 54. Lotney Sloth Fratelli is the facially deformed, abused sibling of the Fratelli brothers who spends his life chained in a basement with only a TV for company, until he meets Chunk, who becomes his new best friend. Sloth is played by John Matuszak, born in 1950 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He started out as a professional American football player in the NFL in 1973 and later found success in 1978's World's Strongest Man competition. He moved into acting in 1979, performing in many films and TV shows, often being typecast as gentle giant type characters, with bit parts in MASH, The Dukes of Hazzard, The Fall Guy and The A-Team, to name a few, and appearances in about 10 films including The Goonies. He sadly passed away in 1989 at the age of 38 as a result of an accidental overdose of prescription painkillers exacerbated by an enlarged heart condition and bronchopneumonia. If he was still alive today in 2025, he would have been 74 years old. I asked about your memories of the Goonies on social media, and here's what some of you had to say. From the community post section of my YouTube channel, Mod Trash is of the opinion that this is one of the greatest children's movies ever made, beaten only by the 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, and it's a great way to escape the modern world and adulthood. The Retro Man, Randy Savage, just picked up the 4K release and really loves this movie. He remembers seeing the poster up in his VHS rental store months before release and was itching to see it. A friend of his mum's owned the shop and put aside a copy for them when it was eventually released, and he reckons he must have watched that film every week for 2 years straight. Gary Lawless agrees with other commenters that The Goonies is one of the best children's movies, as well as being great for adults as well. It has a great story, great acting from all the characters, and at age 13 he thought the makeup on the guy who played Sloth was really intimidating. Joe21671 noticed that his local cinema is showing The Goonies this Saturday coming. He was 14 when he saw it at the cinema back in 1985, and he'll be 53 and taking his 18-year-old daughter with him this time round. Of course, not everybody loves this film, and Rich GB at R4976 thinks The Goonies is vastly overrated, and he's not alone. El Ritmo is fairly passionate in his hatred of the film, even though he always had fond memories of it. After watching it again in preparation for the recording of a podcast episode, it was an absolute headache-inducing misery. The kids never shut up, ever. Corey Feldman's character is odious, constantly bullying his so-called friend Chunk. Chunk himself is portrayed as the stereotypical constantly hungry fat kid, and the movie has weird tonal inconsistencies. El Ritmo also has issues with the portrayal of Sloth, with physical deformities and mental disabilities being played as a joke. When he sees so many other people regarding The Goonies as a classic, he feels like he's taking crazy pills because it's awful. Not that he has a strong opinion on this, of course. Over on my Facebook page, John McLennan Parrish thinks it's an awesome film, still as great today as when it first came out. It's a brilliant popcorn movie you can just casually watch, and one of those feel-good films. This and The Lost Boys are two of his favourites from the late 80s and early 90s. From the comments on Blue Sky Social, Mr. Stew mentions the horribly censored TV versions that still go out to this day, which is a very good point. Many scenes from the film are removed or badly edited, resulting in a heavily sanitised viewing experience. Cleo echoes this sentiment with her experience as she saw the Goonies videotaped off the TV. She had no idea about the opening prison scene until she got the DVD. This scene showed Jake Fratelli pretending to be dead, hanged by his neck from the prison bars. She also mentions Data's line at the end of the film where he says the octopus was really scary. The octopus scene was originally deleted from the movie. It shows a fake-looking octopus attacking the kids in the water, which is defeated after they push a cassette Walkman into its mouth. It's a weird scene even in the context of this often strange film, so I can readily understand why it was cut out. And finally, Rob from 81632bit thinks The Goonies is an example of a kids' film that doesn't treat its audience like idiots. The kids are fairly realistic portrayals of how we were back then, and the way they interact with each other is a true reflection of the dynamics of teenage friendships. If this video has triggered any Goonies related memories or opinions you'd like to share, hit up the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you'd like a comment featured in a future Retrospectives video, follow me on my various social media platforms where I'll be asking for your comments whenever I'm working on something new. You'll find all the links in the video description. We'll finish up now with a selection of TV spots and trailers from back in the day, but first I'd like to thank everyone who shared their comments, to thank you for liking and subscribing, and of course to thank you all for watching Retrospectives.
They're coming soon! Wow! The Goonies! Join them for their fantastic adventures, fraught with danger.
Next Wednesday at 8, watch out! The Goonies are on the trail of hidden treasure.
We found it! We found it! Gold, silver, Oh, glowing red stuff!
Young Indiana Joneses on the adventure of a lifetime.
What the hell is that? It's another one of those tricks! Get out of the way!
A Steven Spielberg production, The Goonies, next Wednesday at 8 on ITV.